Hi, this is entry number 9 of Bill Adkin's life. And today we're blessed with stories. And when we start, let's go back to something that your fraternity did during college days.
Okay. Well, I joined a service fraternity in college. It was called Alpha Phi Omega. And we used to do things for the different departments of the university, the management, anything they wanted and they thought we could do it, they asked us to do. And we had quite a number of members. So, because we needed them sometimes. And one fall, our leaders in the fraternity announced that we are being asked to set up luminarios for the university. So that means we have to place luminarios on all the university building roofs. They're all flat. And then light them. And I thought, boy, this is going to be fun. Well, you climb up these buildings, not climb up, but you will climb up the stairs and set up the luminarios. Boy, that's a lot of work. Yeah, look at the sand, the amount of sand we had to carry to the top of the building, you know. So, but we did it, and we had a pretty good program of manufacturing luminarios, and we bought candles that were about 2 inches high and about 1 inch in diameter, and put sand in the bottom of the bag, a paper bag, and light the candle, and it's beautiful at night. So we made these and we set them all the buildings of the university, and there were a lot of them. And it was really something to do. And the night came where we had to light them up because it was well advertised to people that we're going to have luminarios lit at the university on this particular night. And they had a route sign with signs so that you can't turn the wrong way and so on. And so we lit all the luminarios. And now here's something to remember. Today, if we wanted to do that, you'd take a trigger gun and go zzz, and it has a flame and lights something. We used wooden matches, and that was all right. I mean, didn't care. And
But it was beautiful.
oh, when we got all done, they hadn't let the cars in at all. We waited until it was really dark. But just as it was getting dark, we looked at our work and we said, look at that, all these buildings. And then all of a sudden, all these cars started coming in, hundreds of cars. And they said, keep moving, keep moving. And we were stationed along the route to tell people, please keep moving, keep moving. And at the end of the evening, we went home, and the next day, we had to take every one of those down.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
And that was as much work as it was putting them up.
I'll bet.
But it was so satisfying that every year I helped set up the luminarios. And many years later, when I was married and had children, on Christmas time, we lived in a place that had a long driveway, an S driveway, and I set up luminarios all the way up the driveway, and but not around the house, just that.
I'm sure your children remember.
Oh yeah, and the thing is that we lit them all, and people started coming out of the woodwork, coming over. The word got out. People said, "Hey, you ought to go over to the Adkin's house." And we were out in the country, so we sure had a lot of traffic that night, and I got big candles about this big around, and so tall, and I would blow them all out, so that the next night I could light them again and have people be able to see those too.
Absolutely amazing.
And I really enjoyed doing that at home. And it got so that people knew the story of luminarios from New Mexico. And we lived in a neighborhood where I got all the people. I couldn't get this one guy, but on both sides of the street for about 2 blocks, all the people got luminarios, set them up and lit them, and cars would come by, and it was just beautiful, just beautiful. And of course, we set them up on the roof, at the edge of the roof. You know, we had slanted roofs, but in the gutter, we would put these bags about every 4 feet. And it was really enjoyable. So that's one positive thing that I feel comfortable about, happy about, doing something for others to be educated, and I'll never forget it.
Well, you talked about all those cars going by. Maybe this is a good time for you to tell us about your cars.
Oh boy, oh boy. Well, the first car I had was actually a Model T. And this guy asked me, "Would you like to buy this thing?" And I had about $20 saved up, and there was no free lunch in my home. If you worked, did your chores, and then did extra work, then you could earn some extra money. So I said, "Okay, I'll buy your car," and I did, and I drove it home. He told me how to operate the pedals and so on, and it was a little rough. It needed a tune-up and so on, but I got it home okay. And my dad said, "What's this?" I said, "It's my new car." And he said, "Bill, you can't have a car." I said, "Why?" And he says, "You're not old enough to have a license. Next year you can, but not this year." So I said, "Oh." So I sold it. But I sold it for the same price I paid for it, $15. And the next year I bought a Model A, and it cost me $100. Now, Model A's were selling for $500, $600, $700, and I got one for $100, but it didn't have any fenders, didn't have any top, didn't have any bumpers, but so what? It was a Model A, and it was mine, and I tuned it up, and it ran beautifully, except the charging system failed. And then I couldn't start it. No battery was dead, and I would push it down the street to a corner where we had a sloping road, and I would put it in gear and start the engine and go to high school. And it was fun. And at high school, we had a sloping part of the parking lot, and I would always park my car there so that I could get it rolling a little bit, because it started immediately if you had just turned the engine over. And so that's how I got to high school and got back home. And I had the car for a couple of years, and really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. And I graduated from high school, I was 17 years old. So those 16 and 17, I could have the car. And I remember my dad made me buy insurance for the car, so that if I had an accident, it would pay for problem. But I never had one. But that was a fun car. And I used to drive it up in the mountains of Albuquerque. And it was just enjoyable. And I had a rumble seat in the car. So I had 2 guys in the rumble seat, 2 guys in the back seat, and 1 guy next to me. So there's 5 people with me in the car. So it was well loaded. And we would go up in the mountains, and it was just fun. But that was my Model A. Then I got rid of that, and I saw a guy, a friend of mine, he was working on a car. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he says, "Oh, I'm trying to get it to run, but I don't know if I can or not." And I said, "Why?" And he says, "Oh, the engine's dead. It's dead." And he said, "It smokes. You can't believe how much it smokes when you start it." And he says, I found out I can get $15 for it if I take it to a junkyard." And I said to him, I said, "Well, would you sell it to me for $15? "Sure. Title and everything." "Yep." So I bought it for $15. And there was a guy that I palled around with, a man and his family. They owned a gas station, the last gas station east of Albuquerque into the mountains, the Sandia Mountains. And I talked to him and I said, "I need to overhaul the engine on my car. Could I do it in your place?" He said, "Absolutely, Bill." So I overhauled it, and ran beautifully after I did it. And I drove that for, I don't know how many years, but several years. And then my next car was a 40 Chrysler. And I worked for the Chrysler dealer in Albuquerque, and I talked to the painter for the company, and I told him, "I'd like to paint my car. It's blue, but I would like to paint it a metallic blue." He said, "Bill, you sand it down. I'll help you. I'll show you what you have to do." And he said, "I'll paint it." So I worked like hell on the car, and finally got it to his specs, and wiped it down, washed it down. You have to get the sanding dust off of it. And he painted the car. Oh, was that beautiful. And I was lucky, I had fender skirts. Now, maybe some of you don't know what I mean by fender skirts, but they covered the wheel so that it was a smooth look underneath the car. It went straight back to the bumper. And the reason is the wheel opening was partially covered. And that's what we call a fender skirt. And he painted the whole thing, and I was so proud of it. There was another guy who had a car like mine, but it was a different model, and he liked my paint job so much that he and his dad painted the car. So there were 2 cars that looked from a distance identical. except mine was a Chrysler and his was a Plymouth, I think. And I had that for about 3 or 4 years, and I loved the car, never had a problem, never had an accident, and traded it in with a dealer for a 50 Plymouth. And people would tell me, "Oh, Bill, you made a mistake. You should. The Plymouth is no damn good." Well, I personally put over 150,000 miles on that Plymouth. And when I graduated from college, I drove the car down to Tucson, over to San Diego, and all the way up California coast to Seattle, Washington. What a trip. What a trip. My wife was pregnant, and just the two of us.
Just the two of you.
And we really enjoyed that. I'll never forget it.
That's
we
wonderful.
We got up to Seattle, and I started, Carla's cousin, Sam Sutherland, was an engineer, mechanical engineer, just like me, for Boeing Airplane Company. And Boeing had hired me out of college because of the experience that I had. I stopped going to college for 4 years so I could work for the Atomic Energy Commission. And that's the smartest thing I ever did. And as soon as the guy saw my resume and saw that I was 25 years old and had 4 years of experience, plus graduating as a mechanical engineer, he put in a bid for me, and he made me an offer. And I was the only engineer in college that got an offer from Boeing Airplane Company. So that made me pretty proud. And I had that Plymouth, I don't know, I drove it, was it once or twice a week, because I was in a carpool with 3 other guys. And I took my turn, and finally it got so that the car was starting to show signs of heavy wear. And so I said, well, I'm gonna have to overhaul the engine. And I overhauled the engine out in the yard next to the house, and I took the hood off, and I took all the components off of a car in the pan, and I was able to overhaul it right there in the car, and put it all back together, and it ran beautifully. And I had that thing for another 5-6 years, and gave it away to another guy who was struggling. He worked for the railroad, and I said, you have to promise me one thing. You take the car from me, you have to give it away, just like I'm giving it to you. And he says, I'll do it. So I gave him the car, and bought, I can't remember what I bought, but I bought another car. Oh, I bought a Volvo. And,
oh, goodness. You know, Bill, your car stories and your life stories about your car have given me fodder for other stories. You're going to have to tell sometime about that trip all the way up the coastline. But we're not going to do that now, because we are hitting on 19 minutes.
Oh my, I'm so sorry. I'm yakety. Everyone watching this is already asleep.
So tell them goodbye.
Bye.
And talk to you later.
I'm sorry.